The biggest lie we tell about money is that it just buys things. Most people think financial independence is about owning a nicer car or a bigger house. They're wrong. The most profound thing money buys is a different brain. Smart people disagree violently on what this new brain is actually good for, with consequences that ripple through every decision you make. Where do you stand? By the end of this, you might change your mind. The case for financial freedom is, on the surface, incredibly simple. It removes the boot from your throat. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every choice is filtered through a lens of survival. Can I afford to get sick? Can I risk angering my boss? Can I take this weekend off, or do I need the overtime? This constant low-grade calculus of survival isn't just stressful, it's cognitively expensive. Researchers have a term for this. They call it scarcity mindset. And it operates like a tax on your intelligence. Think of your brain's processing power like a computer's RAM. Every active worry, every bill you're juggling, every financial threat you're monitoring, it all eats up memory. In a landmark study, researchers tested the cognitive function of sugarcane farmers in India. They tested them once before the harvest, when they were poor, and again after the harvest, when they were flush with cash. The results were stunning. The same farmers scored the equivalent of 10 IQ points higher after they got paid. Their brains were identical. The only thing that changed was the absence of financial pressure. The scarcity tax was lifted. This is the first thing financial independence buys you. It's a cognitive surplus. You get your full brain back. You can finally lift your head and think about the world in terms of years or even decades instead of just making it to the end of the month. You can evaluate a career move based on its long-term growth potential. Instead of just the immediate salary, you can say no to a project that violates your ethics. That no is a luxury good. It's a right you have to purchase. When you're broke, every opportunity that comes your way looks like a lifeline. You have to say yes. You have to be agreeable, flexible, and accommodating, because the alternative is missing rent. A person with a 6-month emergency fund can walk away from a toxic work environment. A person with a 2-year runway can turn down a lucrative but soul-crushing client. A person who is fully independent can dedicate their life to a problem they find meaningful, even if it pays nothing. Their risk tolerance appears to be higher. But is it? Or are they simply able to make decisions from a place of logic instead of a place of fear? The calculus changes completely when the worst-case scenario is, I'll have to dip into my savings, instead of, I'll be homeless. This allows for a kind of rational clarity that is almost impossible to achieve when your basic needs are on the line. That sounds convincing. A clear mind free from the tax of scarcity, making better, more rational long-term decisions. But there's a problem with this clean picture. The safety net that gives you clarity also distorts your vision of the world. It insulates you from the very consequences that keep most people's decisions grounded in reality. The risk you're taking is fundamentally different. Imagine 2 people decide to start a high-risk tech company. One has a trust fund. If the company fails, he loses a few years and some investment capital. He'll feel disappointed. He might have to fly commercial for a while. The other person remortgaged her parents' house and emptied her life savings. If the company fails, her family loses their home. She faces utter ruin. Are they taking the same risk? Of course they aren't. The person with the safety net isn't necessarily braver or smarter, or a better entrepreneur. They are simply playing a game where the penalty for losing is trivial. Over time, a dangerous cognitive bias can set in. The financially independent person starts to believe their success is purely a product of their own genius and grit. They forget that they were playing with house money. They see someone else struggling to get a business off the ground and think, why don't they just take more risks? Why are they so timid? They mistake their insulation for insight. This creates a feedback loop. Your financial buffer allows you to take risks. Some of those risks pay off. You become more successful, which increases your financial buffer, which allows you to take even bigger risks. From the outside, you look like a visionary, a master of the universe. But what's really happening? You've built a life where you are shielded from the negative consequences of your own bad decisions. You can afford to be wrong. A lot. Most people can't afford to be wrong once. This detachment can warp your perception of value. When you can afford anything, the cost of things becomes an abstract number. You lose the visceral understanding of what $100 means to someone working a minimum wage job. You start to see problems as things that can be solved by simply throwing money at them, because in your world, that's often true. This is the dark side of abundance. It can hollow out your empathy. You no longer share the fundamental economic anxieties that connect the vast majority of human beings. Your problems become unrelatable. You worry about capital gains tax and portfolio allocation, while others worry about putting food on the table. You're living on the same planet, but in a different reality. And yet, the other side has its own blind spot. The person who says money corrupts judgment is often the same person who spends 40 hours a week doing things they hate for people they don't respect. Is their judgment truly pure, or is it just held captive? The debate gets even more complicated when we move beyond business and into our personal lives. Financial independence doesn't just change your relationship with risk. It changes your relationship with other people. When you are financially dependent on your job, your family, or your partner, there's always an implicit transaction happening. You might tolerate a condescending boss, a manipulative relative, or a loveless marriage because you feel you have no other choice. The financial entanglement creates a fog that makes it hard to see the relationship for what it is. You ask yourself, am I staying because I want to, or because I have to? And the honest answer is often blurry. Now, imagine the fog lifts. You'd have your own money, enough to live on indefinitely. Suddenly, you can ask a much cleaner question. If I didn't need anything from this person, would I still choose to have them in my life? The answer can be liberating and terrifying. You might discover that many of your relationships were built on a foundation of mutual need, of quiet desperation. Financial freedom gives you the ultimate power to edit your life. You can sever ties with toxic family members without worrying about being cut out of the will. You can leave a partner without facing financial ruin. You can quit the friend group that thrives on negativity. You can build a life populated only by people you genuinely admire and enjoy. Your social world becomes a deliberate choice, an act of curation. This sounds like a utopian ideal, a life of authentic, non-transactional relationships. But this freedom carries its own unique poison. When you need nothing from anyone, it can be profoundly isolating. The shared struggles, the mutual dependencies, the we're all in this together spirit that forges deep human bonds, that's gone. Your friends complain about their landlords, and you can't relate. They talk about stress over a looming car repair bill, and you feel a gulf opening between you. You want to help, you offer to just pay for it, and in that moment, the dynamic shifts. You're their benefactor, their savior. You are now outside the circle of shared struggle. You've become something different. The wealthy have always grappled with this. They build walls around their mansions for a reason. The walls are there to keep people out, yes. They are also there because the world outside the walls operates on a set of assumptions and anxieties that they no longer share. They become a tribe of one. Is this true freedom, or is it the most luxurious prison ever built? You've bought your way out of the rat race, only to find yourself in a gilded cage where the struggles are abstract and the connections are fragile. It's a world where you're never sure if someone likes you for you or for what you can do for them. The scarcity mindset is gone, but it's been replaced by a pervasive suspicion. This leads us to the core of the dilemma. The biggest bets of all, the decisions that define a life. Financial dependence imposes a path. You need a stable job, so you need a job with a 401k. You have a mortgage, so you can't just pick up and leave. These constraints, which feel like a prison, actually provide a structure. They force you to commit, they force you to put down roots, they build a life for you, brick by brick. Financial independence removes the entire blueprint. You can live anywhere, you can do anything. You can quit your job tomorrow and spend 3 years learning to paint in Tuscany. You can sell everything and sail around the world. You can dedicate your life to a cause you believe in. You can try on a dozen different identities. The risk of wasting your life in a boring but stable career is replaced by a new, more terrifying risk, the risk of drifting through a life of infinite, uncashed potential. This state is called optionality, and it's the ultimate prize for many who pursue financial independence. The ability to do anything, but psychologists will tell you that human beings are often happiest when they have fewer choices, a clear purpose, and a set of binding commitments. The man who is forced to become a master carpenter to support his family might, in the end, lead a more meaningful life than the man who dabbles in carpentry, then pottery, then coding, never mastering anything, never committing to one path long enough for it to yield deep satisfaction. The optionality that money buys can become a trap, a paralysis of choice. When every door is open, you can spend your whole life standing in the hallway, admiring the possibilities, without ever walking through one. The constraints of a normal life, the very things people dream of escaping, are what force us to build character, resilience, and deep, lasting relationships. They force us to make a choice and then live with it. To make it the right choice, a person with infinite options never has to make a choice the right choice. They can just make a different one. This might be the ultimate hidden risk of financial independence. You might trade a life of constrained meaning for a life of boundless and ultimately empty freedom. It reframes the fundamental value conflict at the heart of modern life. Is the goal to minimize regret by sampling everything, or is it to find meaning by committing deeply, even when it's hard? One path is forced by scarcity. The other is enabled by abundance. So, one side argues that money frees your mind, allowing for rational long-term thinking and authentic living. The other side claims it creates a dangerous bubble, detaching you from reality and isolating you from the very things that make life meaningful. One sees freedom. The other sees a gilded cage. One sees the power to say yes to your dreams. The other sees the paralysis of never having to commit to one. The truth is that money acts as an accelerant. It makes you more of what you already were. It amplifies your discipline or your recklessness, your wisdom or your folly. It peels away all the excuses. So what do you think? Imagine you hit your number tomorrow. The direct deposit clears. The fear you've lived with your entire life, that dull hum of financial anxiety, finally goes silent. You wake up the next morning, a completely free person. What is the very first irresponsible decision you would finally allow yourself to make? What does that answer tell you about the cage you're in right now?